mining and gas and oil, of course. I work in the Marcellus region. I've had the pleasure to meet many of you on many occasions. And one of the things that we worked on in Dish, Texas, Dish being the town of Mayor Calvin Tillman, who we all know and love, and it's actually Wyoming, not Oregon. So Cape Pavilion, Wyoming, which was the site some of you may have heard where there was a lot of water contamination. John Fenton, who appeared in Gasland, he's from there. And we did a combination of health surveys and in the case of Dish, air testing, in the case of Pavilion, water testing, to show the links between symptoms, symptomatic patterns, and exposures. And these are not long-term studies. They're just a combination of what people are reporting, like what you were saying, you feel when you get up in the morning, when you go to bed at night, your proximity to gas facilities, what kind of facilities, and then combining that with summa canisters. Now in Pennsylvania, we're hoping to do it, with other methods as well. And so we've rolled out a similar study here in Pennsylvania, looking at different regions that are the most heavily drilled, and it'll be on a larger scale than what we've done before. And so we're looking at southwestern and northeastern and the northern tier, so primarily Bradford, Tioga County, Susquehanna County, and Washington and Greene counties. But we're also collecting surveys from across the state from anyone who wants to submit them, because we will be ultimately doing a report in which we talk about these patterns of symptoms. And the questions come up here a few times, like what difference does this make? And one of the hardest things, I think, is for people who are experiencing these problems and who are impacted, the urgency in your lives, in everyone's lives, compared to the slow pace of research and regulatory change. You know, it's a slow-moving train. Litigation takes time, regulation takes time.
Oh my God.
But without the involvement and activism and speaking out of the people who are directly impacted, without the documentation of what everyone's going through, none of the other stuff will ever change. And there are a lot of great success stories out there. As I mentioned earlier, in both Dish and Pavilion, they were tiny studies, but they actually sort of contributed to a bit of movement on the part of the agencies. And we're very excited because there's a whole bunch of, and Panay will talk more about this, a lot more interest in health research and documenting health impacts. And we're really looking forward to our small study, which needs to be completed in the next 8 months or so, creating a report and a media campaign around that, and contributing to the work of the Clean Air Council and others, and research facilities and universities that may be able to use this documentation for their own work, and all collectively really bring some pressure to bear on the agencies, in the state and federal level, and to talk about it in the media so there's more awareness created. Because as I mentioned earlier, I've only been doing this work for about 1.5 years, but early on, the most frustrating thing I ever heard, and I continue to hear, I'm sure all of you hear, is when the industry says, you know, sort of, excuse my my technical language, poo-poos the symptoms and the suffering of individuals, and just says, oh, that's just them, you know, they were a smoker, or they had an earthquake and it caused problems in their water. But the bigger body of evidence we can create, the less they can deny that, and the less the agencies can turn a blind eye to it. So our surveys, and there's some out on the table there, we've been distributing them. Some of you here, Vera and Rebecca and Frank, are going to help here, of other folks in other regions helping me get in contact, just get names, addresses, phone numbers, people who may want to fill out surveys, if you know anyone, if you yourself want to fill one out. And then those surveys will be interpreted by Wilma Subra, who is mentioned here, and linked with air and water testing that will be done by Shale Test.